I'm actually kind of speechless. We've had, I don't know how many killings, but I do know that it is a record number of killings. And instead of trying to make sure that we do our job, which is to conduct the oversight. In fact, our colleague who was trying to conduct oversight at the Dilley facility, because she wanted to make sure that people weren't dying in that facility in New Jersey, is now facing 17 years in prison somehow for doing her job. Why is it that we can't just come to DC and do what we were elected to do, which is to make sure that these federal officers are protecting and serving? Instead, the only thing that's happening is that people are being taunted, they are being tracked, and they are being killed. And as I look at my colleague, I don't know if you've had anything to say, but as a Texan, I would hope that we could come together as Texans and denounce what just took place in Houston, Texas. How about we focus on making sure that this agency that has a record amount of dollars now, not because the Democrats were trying to send them more money, because we didn't want to reward their bad behavior, but instead of us doing our jobs and conducting oversight as it relates to federal officers, you guys decide to waste our time and the American people's tax dollars with this nonsense. How about we do our part and try to start saving some lives?
Let me be clear. Donald Trump is running the most openly racist immigration regime in modern American history. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Donald Trump's mass deportation system makes me think of what a modern day slave patrol would look like. Slave patrols were armed groups empowered by the government to control, intimidate, and terrorize people solely based on color. That's what's happening now. Donald Trump is sending mass agents without warrants into communities of color to terrorize the people who live there. And the reason that I want to make sure that I draw out this link, because we heard Maxine say that Black and brown is coming together. I want to be clear about this. This should not just be the immigrant community. This should be all of us united, because we know united we stand, divided we fall. And unfortunately, this last election, we allowed ourselves to be divided. Now, Ms. Velez, it's my understanding that you were detained by federal agents while you were on your way to work. Is that correct? Did any of these agents present you with a warrant?
No.
An explanation?
No.
Did they do anything other than illegally detain and arrest you?
Yeah.
Did they even identify themselves?
No, they did not.
Okay. Donald Trump has created an environment where these agents believe they are above the law. And one of the things that the ranking member just said was that there's a level of dehumanization. It is in that dehumanization, whether we are talking about the language they use to describe human beings, or whether we talk about the fact that they don't feel as if certain people are entitled to their constitutional rights. That is why Ms. Velez, unfortunately, was denied her constitutional rights, which we know she was supposed to enjoy in, just like those in our immigrant community. But this isn't just that this is the most openly racist immigration regime in modern day history. It is also the most violent and deadly immigration regime in decades. More people have died this year in ISIS custody than in any year since the early 2000s, and the year is not over. Ms. Kozlowski, talk to me about the disturbing reports of unsanitary and inhumane conditions, which are partly responsible for the increase in deaths at the federal detention facilities.
The conditions that we see in the federal detention centers, from holding facilities to facilities across the country, are absolutely deplorable. They are deadly, as you have pointed out. But we see conditions where people are denied medical care, where people are harmed while in custody, where people are held incommunicado from their families. What we are seeing right now are the most horrific conditions, and they are simply designed to get people to give up on their cases. They're intentionally cruel, being kept away from their families In some cases, we've seen people in the midst of chemotherapy treatments, people on dialysis who are being held in conditions where they don't have access to bathrooms, where they're given rotten food, where they're in places that are so crowded, rooms that are meant for just a dozen people with 60 people in them, that they can't even lay down despite their delicate medical conditions.
Thank you so much. Listen, Donald Trump has dehumanized people of color for decades. I want y'all to understand this is who he is. This is an actual feature of what it is to be Donald Trump. Instead of a flaw, he demanded the execution of innocent black boys. He has been sued many times for racial discrimination. He called African nations shithole countries. He said that, quote, immigrants poison the blood of our country. And he's repeatedly refused to denounce white supremacy. In fact, he's hired many white supremacists to work in this administration. And now they're carrying out this racist and violent mass deportation, and it is destroying our country. LA, we stand with you, and we stand with the rest of this country.
You know, I've sat and I've listened, and what my colleague, Mr. Christian Murthy, just talked about was just blatant racism. Like, I'm gonna just call a thing a thing. Like, this administration is racist. That he has always been a racist, and that is what we are enduring in this country. Let me give you some facts behind this racism. And they get mad when I say the things that I say, but I will not stop speaking the truth. Number one, I said that what we were experiencing in this country felt like what I would imagine slave patrols to look like. And frankly, anybody that knows anything about slave patrols, this is exactly what it was like. We're talking about lawless people that are going around with no warrants or anything, and it's all about rounding people up and disappearing them. That is what's currently taking place. And interestingly enough, even though modern day policing was born out of slave patrols, when I was speaking with one of my friends who is a federal law enforcement officer, he told me that one of the things that he has observed is that the culture is created at the top. And when I think about it, it absolutely makes sense. If you have somebody at the top that will not tolerate the types of things that we're seeing, then maybe those under you won't do it. But we know that we have a racist at the top. He has called himself the head law enforcement agent in this country, and therefore everybody has decided that it is okay to take off their hoods and mask up as ICE agents. Now, we've talked about how they have hidden themselves, but again, it reminds me of the Klan. That is why I proposed the Clear ID Act, to make them identify themselves, because it is dangerous for law enforcement as well as individuals, because you don't know, especially with ICE going around and doing the things that thugs do. They're busting out windows, they're breaking into homes, they're breaking people's arms. This doesn't sound like law enforcement. It sounds like thuggery to me. But just like you can have somebody at the top that sets the tone for ugliness going down, you guys are blessed, because in the city of Chicago, you have a mayor. You have a mayor that has decided that he will not back down. He will not bend to this administration, and instead he will stand up for the people. You have a man of valor that is going up against a villain, and I think that we have to make sure, especially while we're in his city, that we recognize his leadership, because it is invaluable. Now, some people think that this is all about Chicago, but I want people to understand that this cancer is infecting us everywhere, and if you don't think that it can come to your city, well, I've got news for you. You see, we've been talking about the cruel and unusual punishment that is in violation of the 8th Amendment that is being handed out. And honestly, it's a spit in the face of every American that we have an actual convicted felon that feels aggrieved to the extent that he feels like he's owed hundreds of millions of dollars when people are literally dying under our watch. Recently, I just sent a letter, it looks like on October 22nd, to Kristi Noem. And one of the things that I laid out is that we have seen the most detainee deaths in ICE custody in a single year in decades, with 20 deaths in the last 9 months compared to 24 deaths in the prior 4 years. Now, this week, we learned that an individual who went to the Dallas ICE field office for a routine visit, meaning that they were doing things the quote-unquote right way, they were detained. They knew that this individual had diabetes and required insulin every 2 hours. Despite ICE having been told this, the individual was denied access to their medication for 8 days, resulting in hospitalization. There are some that say that we are making America great. But to me, it doesn't feel like greatness. It feels like grossness.
That's right.
And in fact, I want to ask a few questions, and it doesn't matter who answers them. Is it great or gross to go into people's houses and drag them out in the middle of the night?
Gross.
Is it great or gross to make people afraid to do something as simple as go to school?
Gross.
Is it great or gross to make hard-working people say, I am too scared to show up to my job?
Gross. Extremely gross.